A few years back, I read Charles Frazier's novel, Cold Mountain, set in the American Civil War. And in the novel, we're introduced to a fiddler whose life is changed by this encounter with a girl suffering in excruciating pain. The fiddler typically plays for drink and knows about 6 tunes. His camp, his military unit is camped out in a little village where there's a great explosion. And the explosion is right by the house where this little girl is. She is severely burned and near death, and the father summons for a fiddler to come and carry her to heaven with his songs. So they summon the fiddler, and he comes but feels very out of place. He's very unfamiliar with this setting. He enters into the dark cabin and he meets a girl. And in her excruciating pain, she asks him to play her a song. And he does. He starts to play his drinking songs, and she asks for another one. And he starts to play a few more slowly, as that feels appropriate for the setting. And when he reaches his last one, she asks him for yet another, and he says, I don't know anymore. And she looks at him and says, "You don't know any more songs?" He said, "No, I don't know any more songs." And she said, What kind of fiddler are you? Just make up a song for me. And this was a really strange request. He never really thought that he could kind of make something up, but he gives it a go and he plays. And in time she passes. And the father comes to him and thanks him for carrying her to heaven with his fiddle. And he leaves that dark cabin and he heads back to camp and he starts looking at his fiddle in a different way, a different manner. He never really thought that he could be a part of something like that. He never really thought that he could expand his repertoire and actually learn more songs, but it creates within him a desire to learn more and experience more. And so he goes to taverns and he picks up how other musicians are developing their talent and the sounds, and he can't stop thinking about the music now. It just becomes a part of his very being. And he begins to compose and create, and something has happened in his life by that experience of seeing how this simple gesture of music can lift a soul to heaven. So maybe you've experienced along your way when you've been summoned or called or invited to do something or say something or teach something or help someone. It just feels kind of common, and yet something sacred happens in that moment. And you're not really sure you understand what happened. You just know that God did something through that common gesture. And it gives you some energy and some curiosity to do more, or to develop what talent you have. So let's look back on this fiddler. He has kind of a limited repertoire, and he enters into that dark, unfamiliar space. And maybe in this whole pandemic, we feel like we have kind of a limited repertoire of what we have available to get us through these hard times. And it feels kind of like a dark space, an enduring experience. We kind of do what we can to kind of get along and get through. But maybe along the way, somebody says to us, "Is that all you've got? Is that all you've got? Play me something more. Offer a little bit more. Stretch yourself and create something. Imagine what you have to offer in this time that you've never offered before." And you start to stretch a little bit because someone was honest enough to invite something more. And you begin to kind of step out, and then you begin to learn what more you can do. Different prayers you can lift up, different letters you can send, different words you can express, different prayers you can lift to God. And all of a sudden something happens with this spirit of almost generosity. You find yourself at home in the act of giving, praying, serving, helping. It's how we're wired. We're wired for connection. We're wired to care. And when we begin to experience the act of giving or sharing or helping, life becomes meaningful, and these gifts that we give become sacred. So thank you for the ways that you are stretching in this time. All that we are learning together, the experience of being cared for by God and being connected with one another, it fuels conviction, it guides service, and it leads us in the experience of being generous.